Well, we're back again where we're gonna stain and make this pumpkin look a little bit more realistic. Already, for just paint, paper, and plastic bags, it's looking pretty cool. This is the product that I was talking to you about. It's one of my very favorite things. I've used it for years and years and years for lots of things, but you can only get it at Lowe's. It's Valspar. It's really not a commercial, but kind of is. But anyway, I absolutely love it. And a lot of times I will use the lid because it doesn't take much at all. So I'm first going to apply it, and I just am using just cheap brushes, but you want to get in all the cracks, just like that. And make sure you really go down the centers, because what we're trying to do with this stain is a couple things. It's also a sealer. It helps kind of seal it. Now, if you're going to put it outside, I wouldn't rely on this as just your sealer. I would definitely recommend the polyacrylic or even an oil base if you're going to do it outside, because you know, the sun and all that. But you put on a pretty thin, not a thin layer, but semi-thin, because you're going to take a lot of it off. So I'll kind of do one little section and show you. But it's really not difficult. You just basically paint it on with the brush. You don't have to use gloves because it's not toxic or anything, and it's water-based, so it'll come right off. This is great on walls, on furniture, now on paper pumpkins. I've done it on so many things. Say it, Minwax. Minwax actually has a lot of good products, and I learned something. I love learning things, but it's just kind of almost useless, but still. I didn't realize that Sherwin-Williams owns Minwax, and so that's why I love Sherwin-Williams paints and other colors, and they make Minwax. They don't have anything to do with Valspar because that's Lowe's, but anyway, so now I'm going to take a dry brush and taking off on the high parts. Because our paint was so kind of tacky, I ended up having to spray paint this because our weather's been very rainy and it would not dry. So I can't speak today. Spray paint dries much quicker. So I opted to just do that. And this brush is not taking it off like I want it to, so I'm going to use some of my paper towel and see how it's coming off. But yeah, I'm leaving it in the cracks and all these little crevices but you're wanting to take it off the outer portions of your segments and leave the stain more in the crack. And this is going to actually get a little darker when it dries, so be sure to get off. Just remind yourself that this is going to end up being a little darker than what it looks like when it's wet. And you can always, if it's too dark, you can always go back with some highlighter, and like I could go back with a little gold and then highlight those, make it a little bit lighter and brighter if you want. But because our pumpkin is so soft, be careful when you're holding it not to crush it too much, but it is still pretty pliable at this point. When you get your polyurethane on it, it'll stiffen up a little bit more. But putting this on is pretty simple. Like I said, it's so good for so many things, and color corrections, and just toning down if something's way too bright. You can just tone it down. You can even, since this is water-based, you can mix it with water and even make it less concentrated, obviously, if it's diluted with water. Then you don't have to wipe off as much. And I don't know about you, but when I do something with my hands, I make a weird face sometimes. My mom used to make a weird face when she'd play the piano, and my son, when he plays his drums, he has his drum face, so I guess I have my painting face. We all have it, some sort. We're concentrating deal. But it's definitely going to be much more of a toned down look. And even after this, I can wet a paper towel, which I probably will, and take off a little bit more of the antique glaze. And the cool thing about this too is that you can put it on, and I can pretty much wipe almost all this off. It'll be a little hard to get it out of the cracks and stuff, but you can definitely wipe it off, so it's not super permanent until it dries. And even then, you have to put another sealer on top, or like if you did it on a cabinet, you'd want to definitely put another sealer on top to protect your glaze. But it's a little therapeutic. You can see this, but see how it's really coming off where you wipe. These look like antique pumpkins. You don't have to worry about the bottom so much. Well, you want to get it, but don't spend a lot of time on the bottom because it's going to be on the bottom. I'm squeezing the heck out of this pumpkin over here. It's going to have more character. See, look, I just kind of tapped it back. So this really doesn't take that long. It's just a matter of just kind of wiping it off. Is there a movie kind of talking about wax on, wax off? Karate Kid. My husband and I, we've been watching, I kind of started it, but match game during lunch. And it's like usually, I think it's 74, 75, up to 78, maybe 79. Anyway, but when we answer the questions, we have to think back to that time and what was popular. And it's funny because our kids wouldn't have a clue on how to answer any of those questions because they'd be thinking of current things, and 70s is obviously not current, but I love seeing the hairstyles because I'm sure I'm gonna look back on this video in 10 years and go, what was I thinking? Was that really the style or my hair, you know? And it is funny how the cool part about being my age right now is that I've got to live through, well, I was born in the 60s and I was little in the 70s. So the latter part of 70s, I do remember because that would have been my early preteens, but so I've lived through the 80s, doing decorations and decor. I've lived through the 90s, the 2000s, and all that. So it is very interesting from my perspective to see it come back around. And when like these millennials or Gen Z, I don't even remember all the things, but when they start talking about these new things that's coming out, I'm like, well, that's really not new. That's from the 80s. It's just got a little twist on it, but it's kind of fun that I know all those things. So I have a few little hidden gems from those decades that I can bring back, and guess what? They'll think it's brand new. And it will be brand new, but it'll be a 2020s twist to a 1990s or 1980s thing. Because, you know, it feels like for me sometimes like my polyurethane, doing a lot of stuff with it over the years, I think, gosh, that has been, 20, 30 years ago, and I'm thinking, gosh, it just seems like yesterday. So when I do bring out some of these things, I have to remind myself that it isn't yesterday. It wasn't yesterday, it was a while ago. So people would probably still want to listen to it because it is new to them. So here's my the bottom. Gonna give it just a real quick, say we did it. I don't know, this antique glaze to me makes everything just look different. It just adds such a element that you can only get by doing this. Now, if you don't have this, now this product used to be about $7, and now I think it's more like closer to 20 for a size like this. And unfortunately, it only comes in this one size. I think it's maybe $17, $18, depending on when you live. Anyway, here it is. But yeah, I remember when this was $14 a gallon. It's 50 now. And this was 7 or 8, and now it's closer to 20. But if you don't have this, what you can do, it's just a little different working time. You might have to work a little faster. You can do like a water glaze, which you can do any color you want. If you wanted to do like a black brown, which is what this antique glaze ends up being, just mix it with paint with water, and then you just do the same kind of thing, but you have to work a lot faster because this has what like a paint conditioner in it. And if you want to do that, make your own kind of glaze with different colors, then you could mix water, your color paint, and a clear glaze, which you can use any clear glaze. I've even used Elmer's glue, but also some Floetrol. You can get it at Lowe's and Home Depot. It's pretty much the only option for your paint conditioner for paint sprayers. But what it does, it's like, it's called a paint conditioner, and what it does is it gives you a lot more working time, keeps your product wet longer so that you don't have to rush. And see how this got real dark right there? I'm gonna show you in just a minute. I'm gonna go wet a paper towel and take some of that off, and I can show you how you can make this a lot less, not quite so dark. I'm back with a nice little paper towel that's wet. And I'm gonna go for this one part right here that's super dark. You can see how if you just wipe that off, I'm gonna leave it right in that crack. I just think it looks really cool. So different and unique. And each one that you do can be completely different. I mean, you could have some that each one of these segments, and I never did figure out whether that's what it's called, but if you know what these are called, feel free to let me know, because I do like knowing things. It's kind of an addiction of mine. I'll be watching a show, just a regular show, and I need to know, if I like the show and I like the people in it, I need to know who these actors are married to, how many kids they have. I mean, just, if I could see what their house looked like, I guess I'm nosy, but I'm more curious. That's not a better way to say nosy, but anyway, see how it's coming off? Got myself humming again. And if you polyurethane this too soon or put any kind of top thing on before it's dry, it's going to want to come off. So you want to make sure that this is good and dry before you start to put your top coat on there, because it will undo what you've done to some degree. So, but anyway, you get the gist of it. I'm probably going to add some gold to mine because I'm making this for my centerpiece, just so I can show you that just because it's fall and the colors are normally your oranges, purples, greens, golds, browns, things like that, like you see in nature, and I'll show you those in a little bit. Just because your house is not those colors doesn't mean you can't celebrate fall and you can't decorate for fall and make it look like it goes with your house. I know some people are very traditional and they don't mind if the red and green doesn't go with their house. I'm different and weird that way, so it bothers me. So I'm gonna make this more of my own style rather than just your basic type of thing. So last thing we're gonna do, and I don't need my gloves anymore. That is still kind of wet, but I won't be touching it that much. But I went outside and I just got me a piece of stick that I thought would look kind of cool in my pumpkin. And I'm gonna kind of make myself a little hole there to where it stands up. And here's where my wonderful glue skillet comes in handy. And I could use a glue gun and you could squeeze some glue down in there, which is fine. I find that this glue, even though I put hot glue sticks in there, they do make special glue skillet glue. It looks like little gold pillows, and it's a little bit more sticky glue. I do like it better, but I don't have any, so I just use my regular. But you just kind of, I guess when it gets cured, it makes it a little bit more, it holds better, I should say, because it's got a lot of other stuff in it. So just get some of that good yummy glue in there, stick it where you want it, and it'll dry. So now I'm going to show you the final thing. I will do a little bit of gold, and I'll show you that too, but I've got to get my gold paint. But there's so many ways you can do it. Like if you were a traditional person, these are magnolia leaves I got from my yard. So you could just do simple, you know, that kind of look. And then, or you can do, if you wanted, this is where I think is so, God is just amazing, isn't he? Because all these are from the same tree, from the same yard, with the same weather, same everything. And so I don't really understand. But these are different leaves that came off the same tree, and look at them. I mean, it is, well, this is fresh, obviously. But these are dried. But why did it dry this color? Why did it dry this color? Why did it have these little cool specks on it like that? And there's another one that's, yeah, like, look at that. That's just so cool. I'm sure it's some disease, if you asked a tree person. But to me, it looks like, oh, that looks like something yummy, something different. And then I have this color. So it's like you just don't know what's gonna look like. And I have dried some outside, I've dried them inside, I've tried to figure out the method to the madness. But I think just like with life in general, we spend so much effort. And I know I do because I have a need to know. And I feel like unless I know all the facts and know whatever's going on, I guess I need to help with some trust, and I'm working on that. But we're all working on whatever it is we're working on. But anyway, there's just a plethora of things. But here's my exciting things I want to show you. My house is obviously more colorful. I've got a painting that this is going to go behind, but so remember when I did these, and I'm going to put some polyacrylic on it so that they're a little bit shinier. But I'm going to put these as my leaves because I want my pumpkin to be a little funky. And I probably wouldn't have put the glaze on my pumpkin, but I needed to show you, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. But I will put a little bit of gold on there, and that'll tie in this whole thing. And in fact, I may even paint my stem gold, just to give it something different. But so these are going to be for me, but I had already painted these. These are the hydro dipped ones that I made a while ago. So these have been sitting around for months, and they are Still, I mean, I could probably crush them if I squeezed them. Not too bad. See, I mean, I'm kind of squeezing on them because they have the polyurethane, they have the oil-based spray paint on there, but they actually hold up pretty well. But they turned out so cool, and there's so many different colors. I mean, this is like a platinum-y, gold, orange, black I did on these. So this looks a little boring to me, but if you, I mean, that's just, everybody's different. So this would be a different look. You could actually put that champagne-y kind of over it to add that to it if you wanted to, but I have these colors. This turquoise turned out so, or teal, so pretty. Here's one that's just black and gold. And these are too big for this pumpkin, but I'm just showing you some different ones that I've done. This one is this red color. This is perfect for poinsettias, and I've made several of those with these leaves. So that's a whole nother video on itself, but here's just like, this was dipped in just some red paint, tempera paint with water, and then I splattered it with white. This one is a naturally, that's how it naturally turned out, so it's kind of that light green. But I mean, it's just like, it's so interesting that you can come up with so many different feels and looks to the same project. Just make it yours, make it whatever goes with your house. And like I said, this is a little bit too antique for my house, but because obviously I like that. So I might end up making this whole thing more gold than the other colors, just so that this will fit in there. But I also want to show you some other stuff in another video where I bleached out some elements from outside, like leaves and pine cones, which I'm sure you've seen the bleached pine cones, but it gives it a, it's very interesting what it does. And so I bleached some weeds and different elements from outside, and I've bleached them, and then I've dyed them. I've used Kool-Aid, I've used Rip Dye, which is more expensive, but, oh, and when I was going back to this, you know, to make brown or that antique glaze, all it is, excuse me, is you mix all the colors together and then you get a brown. But this has a lot of black in it, so you want to add some black. But here's another set of leaves that I did, and I took some scissors when it was still, and I'll show you that in just a second, but still fresh. But these I made little, and they look like feathers, and I love them. And see, this is how they naturally curled. And because I dipped this whole one in the red tempera paint, the back got red. But the back also almost looks velvety. And this one has just been dipped, hydro dipped. It hasn't been polyurethane or anything. But, so I'll show you real quick on one of these. So I took it like this and folded it in half. What did I do with my scissors? Oh, right here. So I just am going at the angle, so you just snip it a little bit, snip it. Go down a little closer every time, but you can make them as wide as you want. I try to keep them uniform, or not. I also have one of those wonderful kitchen scissors that has the multi blades on it, and I've used that. See, this is how it looks when it's still fresh. But when you let this dry, I've even put them in the oven. When you put them in the oven, I want to say they turn out more like this color. But who knows? Don't, you just have to experiment. But, so let me get the gold paint, and I'll show you kind of if I did a little paint on this naturally, you could use that for like an event within the next, this will stay green for a couple of months actually in the house because of the air conditioning. Outside they're gonna get brown or turn the more of the golds and the browns and stuff, but when they're in that house they will eventually turn more this color. But I did a home last fall, and I used a ton of my magnolia, and some of the places that I put it weren't for actually fall, so it was for every day, and it still looks great. I mean, the back looks that orangey, like this color, but the front looks more like that lighter green, and it still looks great, but it is very fragile, so if you took it and scrunched it, it would not last. But I'm gonna put some gold on this, and put some gold on my pumpkin, and I'm gonna glue my leaves, and later on I'll show you when this starts drying, then this will start curling up, and you can hand paint these, hydro dip them, you name it. Dip them in Kool-Aid and let the Kool-Aid, see what it does. Just experiment with your kids. That's one thing about this, is that I have a grandson that's 4, and I'm always looking for crafts, and you know how I hate that word, but projects for us to do, art projects, let's call them that, to do together that aren't too complicated, but aren't so cheesy. Because, you know, honestly, the things that they do in Sunday school and at school, most of the stuff you don't want to have at your house. So if you will kind of guide the little ones to doing something that's a little bit more classy, I wouldn't say classy, that would fit more in your home, or if they're making gifts for someone, I mean, they're doing something anyway, might as well make it look cool. And another thing I've done is made some really, really cool angels out of leaves, and that's another thing I'm gonna show you. Also, I made a nativity scene from nothing but rocks and leaves and sticks, believe it or not. And so that's something you can do with your kids too. Lots of ideas for art projects for kids and for gifts. Because, I mean, you might as well, if you're gonna give a gift to someone, make it personal. Make it more, you know, if you know what their home looks like, you know, obviously your kid knows what their grandparents' house looks like, or what style they like. So just try to customize it to where it's something that they'd be proud to show and they could leave out, because it's doable. I'm back, I've got my gold paint, and this I just got it's actually a pretty color gold, and I actually got this at Dollar General for $1, I believe, or something like that. Pretty sure it was just $1. And also I got they have temper paint for a pretty big size for $3. That's a good deal, because you can always use black and white paint for a lot of things. But here's my gold paint, and this paint doesn't look that, I wish you could see it, because I know you aren't gonna be able to see the gold, but when you actually paint it on, it's more, let's say, glittery than it looks when it's not dry. So I'm just gonna take my brush and go down in the center. I'm just going with the same as the, you know, the way the leaves go. And that's one thing you have to remember with metallic paint. It definitely shows every brush stroke. So you want to come back over and over and over. And I'm actually going to take off the center part a little bit, but I want to leave the gold down the middle of the vein. But yeah, I remember when gold fixtures were, you know, huge thing. It was like that real shiny brass, and everybody, you know, changed all their faucets and all their light fixtures to that gold. And that was back in, I want to say, the 80s. You can lay it down if you need to. But then it all went to the whole farm look. So that went to like well, it went from the gold to, I think brushed nickel was a big thing. There was chrome in there. Then we got to the oil rubbed bronze. Now we're kind of more on the dark black. It almost looks brown, brownish black, very much similar to that antique glaze. So I'm gonna use, well, I'll use a different one, a dry one. And then I'm just gonna go down the middle and kind of do the same thing. So I'm trying to take off some of the gold, but I'm leaving, I'm still going with the flow, but see how I've still got my vein down the center. You can just kind of dab it too. That gives it a, even like, it'll almost show your, what do you call it? You know, your pattern to your paper towel. But when that dries and these separate and they kind of twist and turn like that, I mean, it's gonna look really, really cool. And it's free, basically. I mean, it just takes a little effort and a little bit of paint. So now that I've got my paint, I'm gonna go ahead and paint my pumpkin gold. But see how, and it's still gonna be orange, but I'm gonna make it a little bit more contemporary, modern, to go with more of my look. And with metallics, it does not take a lot. And if you skim over it a little, then you'll still see those peaks and valleys of the orange and the antique glaze. Just makes it look more unique, finished. I just love how it looks. I mean, I think it's just very, very interesting, has a lot more character than any pumpkin you're gonna buy at the store. Plus, it's recycling. You're using your shopping bags. So poor little ducks and stuff don't get tangled up in them. And like I told you before, you don't have to use shipping paper. You don't have to use, you can use any paper you have at your house. You could probably use toilet paper. It doesn't matter. Just as long as it's something that you can dip in glue and use fabric. You can use cheesecloth. I mean, it's kind of endless, all the, you know, we used to have trash paper bags, and when I very first started doing what I call bagging, which is gonna probably be coming back soon because everything does, I used actual paper bags when they used to have paper bags at the store. You see how that, if you just brush that over, it's hitting all the top part and not necessarily getting in the bottom, and it just has a really an up scale look to it for what it is. And as you can imagine, when I start working on something, I get an idea, I'm like, oh, well, if we can make a pumpkin with this, then we can make, and that, you know what that means. We can make a snowman, which I have a really, really cute video I need to do on sweater snowmans. They are so cute and so unique. And it's also another recycling thing you can do with your family. Just show your kids, you know, you don't have to throw away everything. And I don't want, you know, to start raising up a bunch of hoarders. I have been called a hoarder before. I'm not a hoarder, I'm a collector, because it's a blessing and a curse when you see value in everything, because you see somebody throwing something away and you're like, no! And they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, I could make something. I'm like, sure you can, but I don't have time for it. And so that's the problem. I will, you know, sorry if I got that out of the shot. Yeah, I will start all these projects of things that ideas I come up with, and I don't finish them, but the beauty of having a YouTube channel is I'm kind of forced to, well, I'm gonna force myself, because most of those projects that I started, I really liked the way they looked. I did enough to appease myself and know that, oh yeah, that will work. I just haven't had the time, which I do have time. Everybody has time, but that's how we use our time, and that's the hard part in life. It's like we waste so much time, I know I do, on efforts on things that don't even matter. You know, we worry about things that in the big picture don't matter at all. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm in therapy, and I think therapy is wonderful, and probably everyone should have a therapist. It doesn't even matter if you got major problems or minor problems. It's a good thing to talk to somebody else that's not in your family, not your friends, that's not gonna tell you what you wanna hear. It's gonna tell you the truth. And that's kind of how I am. I'm definitely not a therapist, for sure. I do offer my advice a lot for free that nobody probably even wants. But that's just how God made me. And I'm learning to ask first if, you know, they mind me sharing an idea or, you know, whatever. And I don't really care if they take it or not. Sometimes it is frustrating to know how things could be if they would just, you know, I don't want to say trust me, but it's not the trusting, it's the fact that it's hard for me to get out what's in my head and when I explain something. Like if I were trying to explain this, I have explained this to my best friend, and she's like, "You're making pumpkins out of Kroger bags and Publix bags?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "How?" And I said, "Well, you'll see the video." But she usually is helping me when I do a bunch of stuff like this. But I'm gonna cut the ends of these off just so I can nestle them down a little closer. But going back with my skillet, and I just got this skillet at Goodwill. Another one of my favorite places. And just dipping it. Putting it side by side, maybe overlapping it a little bit. You want it to look like it came from that stem. So there you have it. If I was putting this outside, I would definitely put the polyacrylic on it. And I probably will put a little bit on these leaves just to make them shine. So, hope you enjoyed that, and be sure and subscribe and like the channel and turn on your notifications so that when I do have more videos, you'll be the first to know about it.